Miss Effie Goodwin was found severely wounded at the foot of the hill where Mansfield University's Allen Hall now stands. The shooting took place on the Friday night of September 3rd, 1897, along Sullivan Street. The next morning, Mr. E.L. Palmer spotted her body lying on the bank about 100 feet from the road. She was covered with blood, and 3 long streams of gore were seen trickling down the slope. When Dr. W.D. Vedder arrived on the scene, he learned that the victim had been shot 4 times in the head. 1 bullet entered her right ear, 1 penetrated her right jaw, 1 bore through her right eye, and the last cut through the top of her skull. Somehow, she was still alive, so the doctor ordered her moved to the nearby residence of S.G. Mudge. Mr. C.J. Beach arrived soon after and identified the woman, who had served as a domestic in his home for some time. Word was then sent for an ambulance to the Cottage State Hospital in Blossburg, Pennsylvania, and Effie Goodwin was transported there in the afternoon. She never regained consciousness long enough to finger her killer. With one last gasp, she died at 6 a.m. on Sunday. Effie's husband, Walter Goodwin, was arrested Saturday evening on suspicion of murder. This was the 3rd time he'd been detained due to his connection with this troublesome woman. The first time, he'd been hauled before Justice Brewer after she swore out a complaint that accused him of fathering her unborn child. Walter married her only to get the law off of his back. Their child met a questionable death too. Effie saw it snatched away as soon as it was delivered. She thought she heard it crying in an adjacent room on several occasions and suspected her baby was murdered. Later, her father-in-law, J. Wesley Goodwin, said in an interview, "The child was a monstrosity and breathed only a few times. We thought it best that she should not see it." Only a month later, Wesley Goodwin paid Effie $50 to leave their family home and to stay away from his son. She then went to work for the Beach family in Mansfield while Walter took up with a number of dissolute women. When Effie learned about his unfaithfulness, she again took him before Justice Brewer on the charge of abandonment. He was hopping mad when his bail was set at $300 that the elder Goodwin paid. He told many of his cronies that he would not support the damn bitch and planned to get rid of her. He also said, "I will fix it so the dogs won't bite her before I get through with her." Walter visited his wife on Thursday, September 2nd, 1897, at her employer's house that sat approximately where Mansfield University's daycare center is located today. He couldn't convince her to drop the charges against him and said he would return the next night to talk more. That was Fatal Friday for Miss Effie Goodwin. Ironically, Walter brought his 14-year-old girlfriend, Gertrude Taylor, with him when he drove his buggy back to Mansfield the following evening. She was to hold his horse while he met with his estranged wife. Miss Taylor later swore in court that Goodwin disguised himself before entering the town. First, he plucked a pearl button inscribed with the letter G from his coat. Then he tied a handkerchief around his neck and pulled his hat down over his face. Before he left Wellsboro, he even changed the black horse he normally drove to a bay one with white feet. When Walter reached his destination, he parked at the foot of a hill. According to Taylor, he then walked in the starlight a short distance to where he met someone dressed in dark clothes. The two of them proceeded up the hill and out of sight. A while later, 4 shots and a low moan echoed from the direction Walter had disappeared. Breathing hard, he emerged from the gloom 5 minutes later, whipped their buggy around, and clattered off down the road. He never stopped until they shot across the iron bridge exiting town and were halfway home to Wellsboro. Back at his father's place, Walter and Gertrude went to bed. As part of their pillow talk, He showed her the .32 caliber pistol he used to slay his wife. The barrel still had blood on it from where he pressed it against her head. The shadowy man who accompanied him supposedly shot her through the ear first, and then Walter finished the job. He was even too arrogant to get rid of the gun. Constable O.T. Height found it the night Walter was arrested. During his trial, Goodwin never showed one bit of remorse over Effie's death. He was too busy looking at himself in a little mirror he held in his lap. He winked at acquaintances in the Wellsboro courtroom and didn't seem the least bit concerned about the charge against him. He never moved a muscle or turned red when the verdict of murder in the first degree was pronounced. He even tried blaming Miss Taylor for shooting his wife before meeting the hangman on Wednesday, May 11th, 1898. Walter was a cad to the end. Effie Goodwin, on the other hand, will never find rest. She's now moved into the MU Arts Building, and many staff members have heard her troubled footsteps echoing down empty halls. The cleaning crew has had encounters with another entity as well. At 5 a.m., they often hear the squalling of a baby. Although they search the classrooms and offices, they aren't able to find the source of the crying. Yes, it seems that Miss Goodwin and her monstrous child have been reunited in the bowels of Allen Hall. The Effie Goodwin murder is from Ghosts Revisited 8 by William P. Robertson. To order your copy, follow this link.